Coming up today, the leaders of South Korea and Kenya hold talks on boosting two-way trade and business. Kenya also condemns North Korea for its provocations and vows to abide by the UN resolutions on the regime. North Korea seeks to mend fences with China sending its top diplomat to Beijing. The visit comes on the same day as Pyongyang unsuccessfully test fires a ballistic missile. Plus, South Korea's second-largest shipping firm, Hyundai Merchant Marine, secures a vital agreement with bondholders that could help it stave off bankruptcy. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Wednesday, June 1st here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. We are going to start with President Park Geun-hye's ongoing trip to East Africa. And on Tuesday, she held summit talks with her Kenyan counterpart in Nairobi. Seoul pledged to support Kenya's development and economic growth in high-tech areas, as well as achieving the country's power generation goals. The Kenyan leader also slammed North Korea's nuclear and missile provocations and vowed to carry out necessary measures to fully implement UN resolutions on the regime. Our Song Ji-sun starts us off.
Economic cooperation was the focus of summit talks in Kenya, the third and last stop of President Park's trip through East Africa. Seoul and Nairobi sealed dozens of deals, ranging from industrial complex construction to introducing Seoul's Tech Institute model. Energy is a key word in terms of Kenya's future growth, as it only produces 20% of its electricity demand. But it's vying to increase it to 100% over the next 15 years, in line with its Vision 2030 to emerge as a new industrial nation. Seoul will seek to participate in Kenya's geothermal and nuclear power plant projects, as well as build a block of Kenya's new industrial complex, paving the way to export products there tax-free to the U.S. via East African free trade deals.
When the industrial complex is completed, it will serve as a gateway for our companies, especially small and mid-sized businesses, to enter the markets of Africa, the Americas, and Europe.
Korea also plans to share its knowledge in the e-government, ICT, and health sectors, while also helping to build an institute for science and technology in Kenya, modeled after KAIST, enabling Nairobi to foster high-tech for growth. Through summit talks, Seoul appealed that Korea is the optimal partner for realizing Kenya's vision for growth and sets the framework for greater economic ties with the biggest economy in the East Africa region. On the security front, the Kenyan president strongly condemned North Korea for its series of nuclear and missile tests and pledged to carry out all necessary measures to fully implement the latest UN sanctions. Urging Pyongyang to refrain from further provocations, the Kenyan leader vowed full support for President Park's efforts to denuclearize North Korea. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News, Nairobi.
Now, President Park Geun-hye also attended a joint cultural event on Tuesday with the First Lady of Kenya. Attended by some 2,000 local residents, the event showcased the dynamic sights and sounds of K-pop, taekwondo and Maasai tribe performances. President Park said she hoped the two nations further boost understanding through cultural exchanges. And for a closer look at how President Park's visit to Kenya is expected to enhance cultural cooperation between the two countries, EG1 reports.
Korea has been actively launching events in Kenya, from an annual film festival to quiz events, to not only raise its profile in the African country, but also establish a better understanding of Korean culture. Such efforts have led to the Korean martial art of taekwondo to gain popularity in Kenya, with an estimated 7,000 learning it as of this year. It's growing as a competitive sport with around 200 athletes competing in the 2014 Ambassadors Cup. 500 are expected to compete in this year's competition in October.
Taekwondo is quite popular in Kenya, and the country makes great effort to teach it to students. The vice president of Jomo Kenyatta University of Agriculture and Technology said he sees Taekwondo as more than just a sport, as it also teaches sincerity and diligence.
In exchange, efforts are also made to share Kenyan culture with Koreans. Africa Insight is a NGO based in Seoul that provides Koreans with opportunities to learn more about the African continent.
Not many Koreans see African nations as separate countries. They also see Africa as extremely poor, even though it's developing quite quickly. So through forums, exhibitions and festivals, we're seeking to change such misconceptions.
In April, the NGO organized the first Whole Africa Festival, where visitors were able to sample African food, make their own African paintings, and enjoy African culture.
We don't have many opportunities to learn about or experience African culture in Korea, so events like these are really interesting and helpful.
And with President Park's visit to Kenya, even more cultural exchanges are expected between the two countries, helping to build new relationships and broaden understanding between Koreans and Kenyans. 이지원, Arirang News.
Now, in other news, there was a busy day of activity north of the border on Tuesday. In the morning, Pyongyang attempted but failed to launch a medium-range ballistic missile into the East Sea, drawing widespread international condemnation. Later in the day, the North sent one of its top diplomats to China. Lee Soo-yong was seen in Beijing, stirring speculation that Pyongyang is desperate to rebuild friendly ties with its longtime ally. Kwon Jang-oh has the latest.
Shortly after South Korean authorities had confirmed North Korea's failed missile launch, the regime's former foreign minister, Lee Soo-yong, was spotted arriving at Beijing airport with a large group of some 40 delegates. The trip had come without warning, and it's the first time a high-ranking North Korean official has travelled to Beijing since the regime carried out its fourth nuclear test in January. Ri, who is a trusted aide to North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, was recently promoted to vice party chairman at this month's Workers' Party Congress. He's expected to stay in China for 4 days, and there are reports that he's set to meet President Xi Jinping. Although Beijing's foreign ministry declined to comment on Ri's visit, it did say that North Korea is an important partner and they hope to continue maintaining friendly relations. It's unclear whether it was the missile launch that prompted the meeting and whether it was China that invited the diplomat or it was pre-arranged. In any case, Ri's visit is another sign that Pyongyang is looking to mend ties with Beijing, which had become strained after the North's recent string of nuclear and missile tests. But changes to the regime's nuclear stance seems unlikely, especially with increased pressure from sanctions.
North Korea is trying to soften China's stance and give the suggestion that they are open to dialogue. But the problem is they are not willing to give up their nuclear weapons. If there is no relief in sanctions, North Korea may feel that rather than holding talks, they will have no choice but to keep developing nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles.
The international community will be closely watching Beijing's response to North Korea's actions in the coming days. Kwon Jang-oh, Arirang News.
Now, we're also getting reports that Lee Soo-yong held talks with his Chinese counterpart Song Tao. According to a statement posted on the Chinese Communist Party website, they agreed to strengthen exchanges and cooperation between the two parties. And as we just heard in Jang-oh's report, diplomatic sources are saying that the North Korean diplomat could meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping later on this Wednesday. The international community was quick to condemn North Korea's failed ballistic missile test. White House spokesperson Josh Earnest told reporters on Tuesday that the US strongly denounces the launch. He said both the US and the rest of the world are calling on North Korea to refrain from provocations that stir tension in the region. Earnest said Pyongyang should instead take specific actions to meet its international obligation to denuclearize. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon also demanded an end to provocations. He was quoted as saying that UN resolutions that prohibit North Korea's missile technology development must be honoured. North Korea launched a medium-range Musudan ballistic missile early Tuesday morning, but the launch failed. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff says the missile may have exploded on the mobile launcher as the boosters ignited. A committee tasked with establishing a foundation for the victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery gathered for the first time in Seoul on Tuesday. But it didn't go off without controversy. The committee chair turned heads by saying the money Japan has pledged to provide under a landmark settlement cannot be considered compensation. Connie Kim reports.
Korea on Tuesday launched a preparatory committee tasked with establishing a foundation for the victims of Japan's wartime sexual slavery, a step toward implementing the landmark Comfort Women deal reached by Seoul and Tokyo in December. Under the agreement, the two countries agreed to establish a foundation for the surviving victims, while Japan pledged an apology and a contribution of 1 billion yen, roughly $9.1 million to help launch the foundation. The committee will set the foundation's direction and prepare to start operations as early as next month. But there's a controversy brewing over how the money provided by Japan should be viewed, as the committee chair's stance appears to go against that of the government.
What's important is to find out what the victims really want and what it will take to heal their wounds. The money from Japan should be regarded as financial aid for healing, not as compensation.
Kim later revised her statement, saying there could be many ways to view the funds and opening the door to other possible interpretations. Government officials had said the money from Japan could be seen as compensation since Tokyo apologized and acknowledged its responsibility for its wartime atrocities. Seoul's foreign ministry reiterated the stance on Tuesday.
The aid money from Japan is significant in that Tokyo is implementing measures that demonstrate the Japanese government's acknowledgement of its responsibility, as well as its apology and expression of remorse to the women, as stated by Japanese Foreign Minister Fumio Kishida.
The launch of the preparatory committee is part of Korea and Japan's final and irreversible resolution to the long-standing issue between the two countries, as outlined in the December agreement. But with both the committee and the government avoiding comment on Japan's call to remove the Comfort Women statue in front of the Japanese embassy in Seoul, questions still remain about whether the foundation will really reflect the voices of the surviving victims. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Now, Hyundai Merchant Marine, Korea's second largest shipping firm, has finally reached a debt rescheduling agreement with its bondholders. This comes after the ailing firm made significant progress in negotiations with ship owners to cut leasing rates for its chartered ships. Kim Jong-soo has the details.
Hyundai Merchant Marine and its major creditors have successfully agreed on an initial series of debt recast negotiations on Tuesday, worth around $530 million. The total debt obligations under review amount to $670 million. Two more settlements are set to take place Wednesday morning. The initial agreement, which was finalized at the Hyundai Group headquarters in Seoul, specifies that 50% of outstanding debt obligations will be transferred to stocks. The other half will be paid off over the span of 3 years, starting from 2018. A direct victim of the downturn in the industry and China's sluggish economy, Hyundai Merchant has been struggling to fight off liquidity problems. But when issues peaked last year, the firm applied for a voluntary workout and joint management program with creditors in March. Korea's number 2 shipper is floundering as it's roughly $4.4 billion in debt, with major obligations coming from shipping finances, corporate bonds, and bank loans. Last year, it posted revenues of $5 billion with an operating loss of over $210 million. Investors say that the company and its creditors reached a mutual agreement because they thought it was a much more preferable outcome compared to court receivership. Officials from Hyundai Merchant Marine said that the significant progress made in leasing fee negotiations with foreign ship owners on Monday left a positive impression on its creditors. However, the shipper still faces hurdles ahead, including successfully joining a new industry alliance spearheaded by Hanjin Shipping. Kim Jong-soo, Arirang News.
Now head to any convenience store chain in Korea and you'll find an ever-increasing amount of pre-packaged meals on offer. They are relatively light on the wallet, but what is really driving sales of these so-called doshiraks? Our Kim Hae-sung went to find out.
Around noon, a wave of office workers rush into this convenience store in downtown Seoul. They're not here for just soda or snacks, but lunch.
These convenience store lunches come in a variety of boxes. They're cheap, tasty, and easy to eat, so I buy them quite often.
Priced at around $3 to $4, these lunchboxes are cheaper than eating out in restaurants and are hearty with many options to choose from, like chicken breast or deep-fried pork cutlet. Many buy a lunchbox to go, but some take a seat for a quick bite.
Most lunchbox shoppers are students or office workers in their 20s and 30s. We particularly see lunchbox sales soar at noon and dinner time.
Convenience store lunchbox sales have been on a rapid rise, and its market size is expected to reach $420 million this year. Experts cite an economic downturn and increase in single-person households as the main reason for this new consumption trend.
The number of single-person households now account for more than a quarter of the total population in Korea. These single consumers who mostly work yet live alone are driving convenience store lunchbox sales.
One-person household population has been increasing and is expected to reach 6 million by 2020. To attract these single consumers, convenience stores are working with the Korean Nutrition Society or Food Research Institutes to develop more nutritious, high-quality menus.
With the number of one-person households on the up and up and more people juggling their busy schedule, it looks as though this convenience store lunchbox trend is here to stay. Kim Hae-sung, Arirang News.
Well, that's all we have for now on this Wednesday morning here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for watching. We'll be back throughout the day with more newscasts. So until then, goodbye.